Hey guys, what's going on? We have now finished HTML, and if you haven't looked at the HTML stuff and you don't know it, then I would suggest going back and taking a look. But at this point, you are ready to add some styling to your page. CSS actually stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is in charge of styling your web page. It's going to make your fonts, picking out which fonts you're going to use in your page, any colors that you're going on, whether it be the text or the background, anything like that, margins, the layout of your page, backgrounds that you want to put on there, music, videos, if you want to add the sizings of those, anything like that, you're all going to do with CSS. That's what to make it great. So let's take a look at the structure of a CSS selector before we dive into the code. Now, this is going to be a standard CSS line. You're going to have a selector type, which is going to be either ID or class, which we're going to talk about. And then there's the selector name. Then we have the declaration, which is going to be this color, I want it red, or this font family, I want it Verdana. So those are your declarations. And then in those declarations, it has two parts. It has a property and then the value. So what property do you want to change? And then the value of that property. So you want the font family, which is the property of your selector. And then the value of it is going to be Verdana. So let's take a look at your code. At this point, you should already know how to get an index.html started. So you have the HTML, you have a head, and then the body. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to right click over here and make a new folder. We are going to make a resources folder. And then inside that, we're going to open up a new folder and we are going to put CSS. All right. So now you have two folders, and then inside that, new file, and we're going to call our styles.css. All right. So that styles.css is inside CSS, which is inside resources. All right. So in our index.html, we're going to link that, right? So we're going to do open tag and then our link, which if you are using VS Code, you can actually just hit tab after you type link and it'll pop up the whole thing. And then in your href, we have to go current folder, and then we're going to go into our resources folder, our CSS folder, and then link that styles.css. So now that CSS file is linked to our page. So now in here, to make sure, we're going to just make an H1, and we'll just make it our CSS, right? And we're going to save it. And I'm already running my Go Live server. If you haven't, get it started, which you can just right click and open with Live Server. If you don't know or don't have it installed, go back into the HTML lessons and that will help you out. So in here, I'm just going to type H1 and then curly brace, and I'm just going to write color purple. Don't forget your semicolon, and we will save, and you'll notice that our CSS word is now purple. All right, so we know that our CSS is working. So the first thing we're going to look at is our IDs and versus class. All right, so let's make a p tag, right? And we're going to have three of them. We're going to have Hickory, and we're going to have Dickory, and we're going to have Doc. And if you don't know why I picked those words, then you missed out on some nursery rhymes. All right, so Hickory, Dickory, and Doc. So say I wanted to make all of these blue. What you would do, just like the H1, we would go in there, we have the P tag, and we would do color blue, right? And we would save it, and then all three have blue, right? So say I had another sentence, and I had a P tag that says went up, right? What if I didn't want this blue? What I would use is a class, right? So I would have a class, and we would call it, let's say, name, right? Because we want just the names to be blue. So I'll put class name, and then down here, I'll put another class. All right. So in my styles, instead of using the P tag and coloring every single paragraph on my web page, I want just the name. So I'm going to go and change this selector. I'm going to put dot. Well, that's a comma. I'm going to put dot and then I'm going to put name, because the name of our class here is name. That means that this is going to be dot, which dot represents class, and then name. So I save that, and you'll notice just the names now are going to be colored. And your regular text down here without the clock is black again. Now say you wanted to select one of these and not all of them. So say doc wanted to be red. So to do that, instead of using the class, which you could do, but we only have one of them and we want to single out just that one, you could use ID equals doc. And that's going to be just him. So then I would go in here and I would use a hashtag or pound sign. I refer to it as the pound sign. Some people will call it a hashtag, but it is a pound sign. So pound doc curly brace, and then I would say color red. And then don't forget your semicolon, just save that, and now doc is red. And notice that it does have the class as well, so it has the blue and it has the red. But since it has an ID, ID will overpower the class. So that's why we're going to have red. So if you wanted to single out one item or one instance inside your web page, one tag, you would use ID. And if you're going to use it multiple times, or if you don't know if you're going to use it multiple times, you may or may not, you just use class. So that is our first lesson. Next, we're going to dive into some fonts to kind of spruce up our text.